Ever wonder how a country with, centuries of history decides to introduce itself to someone who wants to call it home? Well, today we're diving into the official guide to British citizenship. We're going to see the values, the promises, and the tests that really shape that whole journey to becoming a Brit. Let's see what that official journey actually looks like.
So when you get right down to it, this whole journey to citizenship is really about a fundamental agreement. It's not just about filling out forms, right? It's about what the United Kingdom officially asks of its newest members and, just as importantly, what it promises them in return. So let's unpack that straight from the source.
And it all kicks off with this, well, you could call it an invitation. The official handbook paints a picture of the UK as a modern, thriving society. It goes out of its way to say that new migrants are welcome, especially people who will add to the nation's diversity and dynamism. But, and this is a big but, it makes one thing crystal clear. Applying for citizenship is a serious commitment to a shared way of life.
Okay, so to really get what that commitment means, you have to understand a certain kind of code, a set of principles that every single new citizen is expected to live by. These principles are seen as the very foundation of life in Britain.
The official guide lays this code out really clearly. It basically boils down to 5 fundamental principles. You've got democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, tolerance, and participation. And look, these aren't just, nice suggestions. They're presented as the absolute, non-negotiable bedrock of British society.
Let's just zoom in on one of these for a second. The rule of law. Now, the crucial thing here is that this isn't just about you obeying the law. It's this much deeper idea that everyone, and I mean everyone, from the average person on the street all the way up to the government itself, is accountable to the very same set of laws. It's the core of what's supposed to make it a fair society. And all of this, it builds up to this one moment, the official citizenship pledge. This is it. This is the moment where an applicant formally agrees to the code. It's a spoken promise to be loyal, to uphold those democratic values, and to faithfully follow the laws. You could say it's the verbal handshake that seals the entire deal.
But here's the thing, that pledge, it's not a one-way street. The guide really frames citizenship as a relationship of mutual obligations. It's a two-way agreement between you and the state. You can think of it as a kind of social contract.
And this two-way deal is spelled out pretty directly. On one side of the coin, you have your responsibilities. Respect and obey the law, respect other people's rights, treat others fairly, and look after your community. And in return, the UK offers these core freedoms: freedom of speech, the right to a fair trial, and freedom from unfair discrimination. It's a very clear balance of duties and rights.
So let's say you get the principles, and you're on board with the contract. How do you actually prove it? Well, that brings us to the gateway, the formal process every single applicant has to go through to show they're committed.
At the very heart of that gateway is a single number, 24. That's how many questions are in the official Life in the UK test. In this one short exam, you have to prove you know about everything we've been talking about, from democratic principles to British culture, laws, and history.
And since October 2013, the requirements have been super specific. There are basically 2 hurdles you have to clear. First, you've got to pass that 24-question test, and second, you have to show proof that your English speaking and listening skills are up to a certain standard, which is known as the B1 level.
Of course, all these principles and rules apply to a specific place. But what piece of land are we actually talking about when we say the UK? This is something the guide makes sure to clarify, probably because it can get a little confusing.
And the distinction is simple, but it's really important. The United Kingdom is England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Great Britain, on the other hand, is just the mainland trio, so no Northern Ireland. And then you have places like the Isle of Man or the Channel Islands, which are called crown dependencies. They're closely connected, but they're not officially part of the UK.
So, after seeing exactly how the UK lays out its identity for new members, it kind of leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? If you had to create a similar guide for your own country, or any country you know really well, what 5 principles would you say are the absolute fundamental ones? What's the code that defines your home? It's a pretty interesting thing to think about.